The doctors said she had only hours left when the world began to collapse around Joren Hale. Bright white hospital lights blurred as he stood beside the frail body of his 8-year-old daughter, Nira, listening to the soft, uneven rhythm of her breathing. A morning sun poured through the hospital window, cruelly warm, as though mocking the cold dread tightening inside his chest. He had sold everything, his tools, furniture, even the tiny necklace Nira's mother left before she died, yet it wasn't enough for the rare treatment she needed. His hands trembled as he held her small fingers, terrified that any second might be her last. The heartbreak came like a storm he couldn't outrun, shredding every last piece of hope he tried to cling to. If you are part of the ripple of love, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe, because stories of hope, compassion, and second chances deserve to keep flowing. Joren felt his knees weaken beneath him as he whispered apologies into Nira's hair, feeling the warmth of her weakening body. He had promised her he would fix everything, but promises meant nothing in the face of an illness priced higher than a poor mechanic's life. When the monitors beeped in uneven bursts, he felt the room closing in, suffocating him with helplessness. He could not accept that this would be Nira's last sunrise. Then everything changed with the sharp sound of dress shoes on tile. A tall, imposing man in an immaculate daylight gray suit stepped inside with the calmness of someone used to controlling every crisis in the world. Kaelan Drayce, Billionaire CEO, known for his ruthless efficiency and colder-than-stone business instincts, walked up to the hospital bed as if he had every right to be there. Joren had fixed cars for Kaelan's company fleet. They had met only once. The man owed him nothing. Yet Kaelan looked not at Joren, but at Nira, with an expression so strangely soft that it unsettled the entire room. His voice was low, steady, and carved with quiet grief as he asked the doctor a single question: what would it cost to save her? The doctor hesitated, then named the full price of the treatment, a number that had destroyed Joren's world. Kaelan simply nodded. He would pay it. Just like that. No hesitation. No struggle. No second thought. As the doctors rushed Nira away to prep her for the emergency procedure, Joren's legs gave out entirely. He slid to the floor, overwhelmed and confused and desperate to understand why a man surrounded by wealth and luxury would save the life of a poor single father's child. He tried to thank Kaelan, but the billionaire stopped him with a raised hand and an unreadable look, as if there was more he wanted to say but couldn't. Days passed. Nira survived. The treatment worked. The late morning sunlight warmed her cheeks again as she smiled at her father with the same brightness Joren thought he had lost forever. His gratitude toward Kaelan grew heavier each day, but so did the unease twisting inside him. Kaelan visited the hospital more than expected, always bringing flowers or books, always lingering near Nira with a silent tenderness that didn't match the reputation of the most feared businessman in the city. On the day Nira was discharged, Kaelan finally asked Joren to step outside. They stood on the hospital's sunlit terrace, morning light glinting off the steel railings, the breeze carrying faint noise from distant traffic. Kaelan looked less like a billionaire that day and more like a man haunted by something buried too deep. Joren braced himself, expecting Kaelan to ask for repayment he could never afford, years of labor, a binding contract, something crushing. But what Kaelan asked instead shook him in a completely different way. He told Joren he wanted to become Nira's legal guardian, if anything ever happened to Joren. Not now. Not instead of him. Not to replace him. But as a backup. Something steady and secure that Nira could rely on if Joren ever couldn't. Joren's breath caught in his chest. The request felt enormous, impossible to understand. Why would a billionaire want responsibility over a stranger's child? Why her? Kaelan's voice cracked as he finally revealed the truth. Years ago, he had lost his own daughter, a girl the same age as Nira, around the same bright morning of a day he still relived in nightmares. She had died because he had been away, drowning in his empire, chasing profits instead of moments that mattered. By the time doctors called him, it was too late. He never got to say goodbye. He never forgave himself. And when he saw Nira, when he saw Joren fighting alone, selling everything, begging for help, he saw the version of himself he wished he had been. The father who fought. The father who showed up. The father he failed to be. Joren felt the heaviness of that confession sink into the sunlight bathing the terrace. He saw not a billionaire, but a broken man searching for a sliver of redemption in the life of a child he saved. For days, Joren wrestled with the decision. He owed Kaelan everything, yet signing guardianship papers meant entrusting the future of the person he loved most in the world. Fear gnawed at him. He had lost too much already, his wife, his home, his savings. The thought of losing even the potential closeness of Nira terrified him. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized the truth. Kaelan wasn't asking for power, he was asking for a chance to protect someone, to love someone, in a way he failed before. A way that healed a part of him he thought was forever broken. So Joren agreed, under one condition. Kaelan wouldn't just be a guardian if something happened. He would become family now. Someone present in Nira's life, not as a replacement father, not as a shadow of grief, but as someone who cared enough to save her. And Kaelan accepted with a relief that softened even the harsh lines of his face. A new rhythm formed. Kaelan visited their small home during bright afternoons, rolling up his sleeves to help Joren repair old engines while Nira painted his suit jackets with colorful handprints that made him laugh for the first time in years. He bought Nira books, not expensive toys, things that encouraged her imagination. Joren noticed how Kaelan would kneel to her level, speak softly, listen carefully, as if these simple moments were worth more than his entire empire. But life has a cruel way of testing the fragile peace people try to build. 3 months later, Joren collapsed at work. A hidden heart condition, worsened by years of stress and exhaustion. The prognosis was uncertain. The doctor spoke in quiet tones under the bright afternoon light, and Joren felt his world tilt again, but this time, he wasn't alone. Kaelan stood with him every step, refusing to leave his side. Nira clung to them both, terrified but held safely between two people who loved her more than their own breath. And when Joren realized the surgery carried a risk he might not wake from, his heart broke not for himself, but for the little girl whose life had already been carved by loss. If this story is touching your heart so far, take a moment to support it. Your engagement helps keep these emotional stories alive. On the night before his surgery, Joren asked Kaelan for a promise. Not just legal guardianship, that was already in place. Not just protection, Kaelan had already shown more devotion than anyone Joren knew. He asked Kaelan to raise Nira not out of guilt, not out of obligation or compensation for his grief, but out of genuine love. To teach her joy. To surround her with warmth. To let her grow into the light she carried. Kaelan's voice trembled as he gave that promise. Joren smiled weakly, knowing he was placing his daughter's life into the hands of a man who once believed he didn't deserve a second chance. Before the final emotional conclusion, viewers, please comment and share what moment touched your heart the most. The surgery was long. Hours passed under harsh fluorescent lights while Kaelan held Nira close in the waiting room, whispering reassurances even though his own hands shook. Morning sunlight finally spilled across the floor when the surgeon walked out. The words came slowly, but they were the most beautiful words Kaelan and Nira had ever heard. Joren survived. The weight that had crushed their chests lifted as if the whole world exhaled with them. Months later, under the warm glow of a gentle afternoon, Joren watched Kaelan and Nira planting flowers in their small yard, laughter echoing like a melody he thought he'd never hear again. Kaelan wasn't a billionaire in that moment. He was simply a man who had found redemption in the place he least expected, in a little girl's smile and a mechanic's unwavering love. And Joren realized life had given them something extraordinary. Not a transaction. Not a debt. But a family born from loss, rebuilt with compassion, strengthened by second chances. The kind that heals. The kind that lasts. The kind that proves that sometimes, the people who enter our lives in the harshest daylight moments